So a lot of people like this coin. A lot of people don't like it. I don't want to say a lot of people. Some people don't like this coin. It's been very contentious in some conversations as well. As you know, the dump forever narrative. Just I don't know when it's going to go away, or will it go away? Will it go back down? Will incentive go back down to $1? I mean, hard to
No, I
say,
don't think
but
so. I don't think so. I
what's
don't think incentive's
let's
going to go
let's
down to $1.
what is the case for it, and what is the case for it not? Yeah, okay, so do
In
you
order to
believe
get
it
an
can?
incentive to go
Yeah.
down that far, you'd need to see the, I feel like you'd need to see the chain fail, because like right now, the only incentive to provide liquidity is incentive. So there is a value there, right? It's the incentive to earn it for reward, and then to be able to flip that incentive into something else that you deem is more valuable to you, whether that be Hex, PulseX, Pulse, or some meme coin to chase it for a 10x or 100x, whatever it's going to
But
be.
what's the incentive to not sell it? I think that's the thing nobody can wrap their head around. Why wouldn't
Well,
you just trade it, sell it like
remember
somewhere?
when you say sell it, when as long as you can swap it for something, so as long as it's not, as long as the ink isn't being put into stable coins and extracted out, at least the money's staying in the system. So it's either going to Pulse, PulseX, Hex, or something else. So it's not really being sold. It's more like values being transferred from one asset to the next, and because they all are tied together, the money staying in the closed loop of ink, PulseX, Pulse, Hex. Then the same guys that are swapping, let's say, ink for Pulse, for example, then they use that Pulse into re liquidity provide more Pulse, and then they get more ink, and then so you can compound in a loop, so that you're not really, so the ink can't just go. It's just not a down forever token in that way. The incentive to provide liquidity and the value proposition of PulseX right now with no LP fees is only ink. That's it. Like that is the value proposition, is that you can get that ink. And as long as not 100% of it is being extracted out of the system and bridged back over to Ethereum, the system can continue to function. It'll just be a slow bleed until the price of ink gets so juicy that a large percentage of that initial supply can be absorbed by a large player. And this is the same thing that happens with every crypto cycle bottom. Large players step in, they absorb a majority of the supply, and then they push it off that level, and there's no supply left for the market. So the market has to take it higher. So it creates floors and price charts.
I get that it's good for the ecosystem to be able to rotate ink into the blue chips, but still, why would you hold ink? Why would you not just rotate it every time, which doesn't make price go
Because the
up, right?
tokenomics of it are set up so that it's a fixed inflation rate, so that over time, the amount of inflation that's going to come out over that next year is half of what it was it changes every year. So like this year it's going to go from 0% to 100%. And then the next year it's going to go 50% more. And then the next year it's going to go 33% more. And then the next year it's going to decrease. And it's going to continue to decrease because it's a fixed inflation rate of like 31 million per year. But that 31 million per year relative to in like 3 years, it'll be like 100 million of them. That next 31 million is only 1/4 of the supply that's coming out. And by then, the supply will likely be so centralized in the hands of the few who are the master liquidity providers of the system, the true market makers of the system, the sharks and the whales, that they will be able to protect and defend their prices because there won't be enough supply on market to push the price back down past the floors that they've created over the previous years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how all cryptocurrencies move, right? It's just a supply and demand dynamic. And so eventually ink becomes more valuable. And that is the very thing that drives demand for liquidity providing. So the value is inherent in the tokenomics of the inflation, and that it's a reward given away that will always have a higher and higher value relative to the ecosystem because it's what people will chase. And by the way, this gives a certain amount of middleman power. The guys that set up the farms are the ones who dictate where the ecosystem goes, right? So if you're the guy that's creating the farms, you can basically tell people where they're going to put their economic energy. So you're like, look, I have this token. It pays you out an APR of 1,000% today. You can put in liquidity here and start earning that today and swap it into your favorite coin. And then we'll buy it back from you once it's down 80% and create a floor and then push it up a little more so you can't sell it back down on us the next time to such a low level. And then we'll do it again. And then we'll do it again. And it's just rinse, wash, and repeat over and over and over. And this isn't exclusive to ink, but this is how ink works inside of this system.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same principle across all cryptocurrencies, supply and demand.
It's almost like if you look at it the other way around, like forget about ink for a moment. If you had a token that's created that has a similar kind of an inflation rate, what is its value proposition? Somebody's got to make a market. Okay. Where does the price come from? People speculate that other people will buy and sell and the price will go up. And then maybe somebody's going to do something with utility. And then eventually the market makers have accumulated enough that they I hate to say it, it's like they control the market, but I mean, they protect the market, defend the market, right? I mean, that's how I'm understanding what Axis says, because I've asked the same question to both him and others, like, what is the purpose of this, right? But it exists. I mean, how is it any different than the other token, really? I mean, in that way. And it has, and so the real super plus is it comes with utility. What's the utility? It's exchange, a medium of exchange between liquidity providers for other tokens.
I like the way Sloth talks about it too. How do you put it? Like you're monetizing risk with incentive token. Is that, I don't know how you put it, but you want to talk about how you think about it?
Yeah. So if you frame the incentive token by like it's the reward you get by taking on the risk of impermanent loss, when you're buying the incentive token, you are like kind of pseudo buying the risk other people took on in a way, because like they incurred risk of potentially getting left behind if a certain coin took off relative to another, and then the thing that they got for that reward, they're selling for it. So now you can buy it, and instead of taking the risk of a permanent loss, you basically just take the risk of owning an asset. So it's like you're able to indirectly buy the risk other people took by participating in the market, participating in market making, without having to actually market make yourself. And then another important thing to keep in mind with the incentive token is that it's like paired pretty well with like PulseX and PulseChain and everything. So actually, like the buy and burn, part of that buying will actually probably be routed through incentive token pools. So even though PulseX is the thing that's going to be removed from the market in terms of it being removed from the pools and being burned, it is possible through certain ways of routing that like ETH, USDC, or something like that gets put in the ink pool, or say Pulse gets put in the PulseX and ink pool before PulseX is removed from the ink PulseX pool. Like these are actually possible things where the buy and burn can route through the ink PulseX pool in order to pump the token itself. So there's a lot of moving parts, and I think everything Axis said was correct. It's just the people who are doing the market making that Axis says, they get a lion's share of the incentive pool, and that just becomes an endless source of passive income for them forever, because they control what the price is going to be. They're earning, say if they're pairing ink with Pulse or PulseX, when the fees get fixed, they're going to be earning PulseX and Pulse. And then also at the same time, if they put that to earn more ink in the incentive pools, the amount of ink that they're earning passively day to day is not enough to break the market that they've already made for themselves. So they're able to extract that daily liquidity while keeping a high valuation of their underlying assets that's protecting that day-to-day income that's coming into them every day. It's actually a pretty advantageous situation to be in, as long as you can accept that you're not really able to exit that underlying position of your assets, because you're the one who's making the market for them to be that price in the first place.
So if you're buying incentive token, you're betting that the risk is valuable, and people will keep taking risks. How would you describe people who buy it? Like what is their thesis if you're buying incentive token?
Let's say you hold a lion's share of the incentive token, and the price of incentive token drops 90% to let's say it's like $5 again. At that point, you can buy so much more of the supply and centralize it to such a level that you know for a fact that now if you increase the price to like 20, 30, $40, you can raise the APRs to give people more of a buffer to take on that risk, to make them feel more comfortable, to provide liquidity, to make the ecosystem more robust and deeper liquidity across the pools, and not just have one or two guys being the market makers. Now the entire thing can be a well-rounded market making economy.
And that gives them the sufficient amount of liquidity for them to slowly drip out from whatever rewards they're earning from their positions.
And the key element here is time. So it's as long as somebody can't break the time variable, meaning they can't dump the price down very quickly in a short amount of time, then they just don't have enough supply to affect the chart negatively anymore. So time is the element. When you let something drop 95% and you absorb enough of the supply, you are buying your time back in the price chart. That's the best way to think about this. It's like you are literally, if you could accumulate 1 billion hex at 1/10 of a cent, you would be buying back a year's worth of time on the price chart, which would create the ultimate liquidity squeeze on the price and give it so much runway to move. Because 1 billion hex is only 1/16 of the user supply, which is a huge portion of the supply. That's mostly because remember, based on hexfire.io's liquidity analysis, only 0.5% of all of the user supply is even on the market. That's 200 million hex. So at any given time, there's only 0.5% to 1% of the supply, liquid user supply of 16 billion on the market for sale. And if you can buy a year or 2 years worth of time below a penny, you can be the market maker that gives this thing a floor and consecutive floors that just will never be penetrated ever again.